Okay, so here's what we have with the face so far. We've got the gesture, we have an eye line, we have the nose line. Now we're going to get the mouth in. So I'm actually measuring down from the nose to get the mouth. So I measure that with my end of my pencil. You saw me measure with the eraser. And so now I'm seeing where that lower lip hits. So I'm measuring from the nose to the lower lip, and I'm going to make a little mark there. And that was just some pastel I picked up on my fingertips when I moved. My easel is filled with pastel and charcoal. So I'm just going to wash off or erase off that goatee there. You don't need to worry about that because you're not working with other materials. So I'm measuring from the side of the cheek to the center of the nose there. So I'm just making sure that the nose is in the right position. And you see I hold my finger there just to kind of like mark the place, and then I make sure I'm drawing that vertical line, that vertical axis line down the center of the face. The center of the face, in this case, is not in the center. So we're going to figure out the eyes. So I'm going to measure this out again, but I'm looking at the distance between the two eyes, and I'm lining it up with the pink of my eraser all the way to the green end. And I'm going to make a mark there. And then, so I'm double checking that. So lining it up with the pink, lines up all the way to the green, and I'm going to compare that to that eye that's closest to us. And it's about the same. Maybe a little bit bigger on that eye that's closest to the viewer. So on our right side of the paper. So it's almost the same length as the distance between the two eyes. I'm putting little marks there. You can't quite see the other, where her eye ends on the left-hand side of the page there. But her eye is going to be smaller on the left-hand side, our left-hand side, compared to the right. So that right eye is closer to us, so it's going to be bigger. And here I'm getting how wide open the eye is, and I measure that with the pencil too. I think it was like the eraser, I'm doing here too, from the eraser to where the green line starts. So I'm getting the height and the width on both eyes. And now I'm going from the height to get the eyebrow line. So I measure that over on the paper, on the picture there, and drawing that in. I'm angling the eyebrow. And this is going way more fast-paced than we've done in other drawings. But you guys are getting good, so I feel like I can challenge you a little bit more. So here's the eye, and the nice thing is you have the photo right there, so you can really look closely and compare your drawing to the photograph. She's got these beautiful kind of like curved almond-shaped eyes, and she's smiling, and part of what happens when we smile is our eyes close a little bit. They half close. So you can see her eyes are partially a little bit more closed than they would normally be if she weren't smiling. And that's true of everybody. So the overall shape of her eyes is kind of like a crescent shape on the top, but more open on the bottom. Getting in a little bit of that upper lid. She does have a upper lid there, and it's really close to her lash line there. And then going to the other side of the face, going to the other eye, and putting that in as well. So just working on getting the shape of the eyes the way you see them in the reference. but it's still okay if it's not 100% accurate at this point because we're going to be shading it. And that's where you can make more corrections. Okay, so I'm putting in the pupil here, and I'm looking really closely at how much space there is, white space there is next to her iris and pupil. So I'm looking at that eye, the one that's on the right-hand side of the paper, and I'm looking at the shape of the white of the eye. So it looks kind of like a triangle shape, and I look at it and I estimate, is it halfway? How much of that white am I seeing there? And I try and copy it. And in my mind, it looks like it's a little bit less than half. So now I have both pupils and irises, well, both irises in. I really don't have the pupils yet. Fruit fly, short life cycle. You guys see that in the video. Okay, so I'm getting the angle of the eyebrow, and you can see I'm checking the angle with my pencil. I was holding my pencil against that eyebrow to get the angle of the eyebrow. I'm moving over the bangs a little bit, trying to get that more like the photograph. And she does have these little kind of pockets under her eyes, just like everyone does. You want to make sure you kind of lightly outline those two. We're also going to be trying something different as far as shading on this one. We're going to go for the basic values first, and we're going to work it all up at the same time. So this nose took me a while to get right. I'm looking at the curve of the nose on the picture, and I'm checking some things, and here's what I do to try and help to get it right. So I noticed that if you drop the line, a plumb line straight from that right eye down and left eye, so on the left eye, the nose actually starts right around where the iris, the left side of the iris touches that lower lid there. And I'm checking the distance. I'm checking the distance between the nostril there, this side of the nostril, and the eye. Make sure that's correct and it looks good. So if something's wrong, check your measurements. And there's multiple ways to check your measurements. Like that was an interesting way to check it. I could have checked it from the eye line to the nose, which would also be good too. But I'm checking different angles, and I'm using my pencil to measure and compare. So here I am trying to draw the nostrils. And those nostrils are a little bit tricky. Not gonna lie. And it does take a while to get that nose looking correct. And of course my shadow's gonna block in there too. So there's the curve in the nostril I'm working on. I'm trying to get it. You can see my eyes, my head keeps turning to that photo and back, trying to get that correct. And the closer you can make it look to the photo, the better the likeness will be. So I'm looking at that shape that the nostril creates there. And kind of adjusting it. And it still doesn't mean it's set in stone. I might alter it a little bit more as I work it up. But I want to try and get it close. Remember, there's the ball of the nose there. She does have a prominent ball on the nose. Okay, so now I'm starting to check with the placement on the upper lip. So I was measuring between the bob of the nose to where the upper lip begins. And we're not finished with these features. We're just getting them a kind of a rough outline. So I'm going from about the middle of the eye down to get how far wide out that mouth's going to be. So I'm checking and lining it up. So I'm dropping a plumb line there. It's almost easier to go to the edge of the mouth and then draw a vertical line up, see where that hits on the eye, and then compare it. All those lines, they look weird, but we're going to erase them out. So ultimately, you won't have to see them. And her mouth is tricky because it's open, and it's also in perspective, which means her mouth's being pulled kind of up in almost like a V formation, where the V part is right in the center of her lips there, lined up with the center of her incisors. And I will show you how to do those teeth. I'm not going to individually draw them. I'm going to draw them with a light and shadow with value. Not individually. They will look funny that way. So when you're drawing the mouth, it helps to look at the shape of the mouth. So like I'm looking at the inside of the mouth first to get that basic shape. Then you can go to the outside and do like the lip shape. And I'm looking at the negative space too. So any kind of black area in there, darker value in there becomes a shape. So I'm outlining that shape a little bit to help me figure out where things go. And I'm prepared to like adjust it and fuss a little bit until I have it correct. So I'm just checking that width of the nose to the width of the eye, and I'm comparing the photo to that just to make sure I have that measurement right. Remember, I did say it's always comparing and checking your measurements too, because sometimes you'll find you get a little bit off partway through the drawing. Something doesn't look quite right, but you can't figure out what it is. When that happens to me, I just double check my measurements. Okay, so I'm checking that length on the neck, getting the angle for where her neck connects into her chest there. So yeah, we're drawing the whole, everything that you see there pretty much. Not sure yet if we're going to do the background. You could. Get in the hair a little bit more. She's got that headband going on in the top of her head.